Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Dwarf Fortress and indeed to the outpost of Castle Goat, where in the last episode we managed to strike the earth and have a relatively successful embark. And I say successful because no one is dead yet, and yes, the bar can sometimes be that low. Now, we did get to work on the beginnings of a temporary kind of staging base before we get to work on the fortress proper. Now, I say the beginnings because there is still a couple more things that we're going to want to place in here for us to feel confident that this would be able to keep our dwarves safe and alive, even perhaps should a siege occur. There is still a bit of more room that we're going to need to excavate, but this is going to be the important part for the most time-sensitive task. We need to get a farmer's workshop up and running so we can turn that milk into delicious cheese before it goes off. We are on a bit of a timer with that one. Additionally, I have off-camera, in fact, I'll just pause it again just to cover these, set up the work orders a little bit better. Now, you'll notice the number 7 a lot with these work orders because we've currently got 7 dwarves. The rule of thumb is a dwarf will eat twice a season. That's right, they eat like I do. I didn't misspeak, it isn't twice a month. The dwarves and I are more akin than I first realized. They only drink 4 times a month, though. They'll eat 4 times a season. They'll eat twice a season and drink 4 times a season. That's where the comparison between me and the dwarves breaks down. This face when I realize I drink more than a dwarf does. I don't know what that says about my life. But nevertheless, I have tailored the numbers as I promised I would for the meals. Currently, easy meals will make 7 a day until we've at least got 14 meals available. At that point, they'll switch over to less ingredient efficient forms of food because we've covered at least 1 entire season. The fine meals, as long as it's less than 28, so 2 seasons worth of food, they'll still make fine meals, but as long as we've already covered the basics. Now, the reason why I set it up like this is because I don't want us using twice as much resources to get the same amount of food until I already know that for at least the next 3 months we're covered. After that, though, sure, start making the more enjoyable meals, which will have a greater chance of satisfying a dwarf. And then finally, lavish meals. As long as we've got 28 meals already, then you can start making the least material efficient form of food. But the reason why I haven't put an upper limit on this is because, as it happens, meals can make a really, really compelling trade good. Do not sleep on the fact that lavish meals, don't sleep on lavish meals in general, but don't sleep on the fact that they can actually outperform regular rock crafts pretty convincingly, especially once you've got a high tier cook. So that will take care of all our meal needs. Now, we're going to need to wait for them to dig all of this out before we can really get in there. But while all of that's going on, you know what? Let's go ahead and set up some new workshops. We're going to need a clothes workshop for turning threads and yarn into things like rope. Let's go ahead. Actually, don't use the closest material. That was my bad there. Let me go ahead and grab that again over here. Clothes workshop. Select material. Because I can, I'm going to use netherwood logs. I know that netherwood is like the only wood that is magma safe, but we're not going to need magma safe wood. We've got loads of other magma safe materials, and we don't have any magma. I like nethercap because of its color. It's the only reason I chose to bring nethercap with me. It doesn't cost any more than other types of wood, so don't worry that I'm using nethercap for trivial things like wheelbarrows. I just like the color, that's it. No more thought went into it than that. We're also going to need a leather crafter's workshop to turn the leather that we're soon going to have into a quiver at the very least, and a couple of other things besides. And then finally, we're going to want a crafts dwarf workshop down here as well to make those wonderful rock crafts that I was just talking about. Now, with that all done, let's go ahead and move a couple more things up top. Now, first and foremost, we are going to want the aforementioned farmer's workshop. That can go in there. Once again, nethercap. We are also going to grab the tannery, so we can turn the hides that come from any slaughtered animal straight into rawhide, which can then be used. The rawhide straight into leather that can be used for the leather workers. And then finally I'm actually going to go with, I think, the loom. Now, might be misremembering, but I believe that when you spin wool or hair into yarn, you do still need to use a loom to turn that yarn into cloth. So I may as well throw that in here just for good measure. Now, if I was using a fisher dwarf, then I'd probably want a fish dissector there, or rather a fish cleaner's workshop, a fishery. But we don't need one of those for now. Right, at this point, we can safely remove that loom. There are no outstanding orders there. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Right, so I believe the tanner will be an automatic job. Let me just double check that, though. So, labor, I think. Standing orders. Slaughter marked animals, automatically butcher carcasses, automatically clean fish, automate the tannery. Okay, so I don't need to worry about the tanner automatically trying to take care of any items. One thing I will say, though, is I don't recall, like, if an animal dies, the butcher won't set up a job to butcher that animal unless it's brought to it. So if an animal just dies out and about, it's not going to get butchered. That's why we've got the butcher work order. But generally speaking, if an animal is butchered, it's always going to be, something that our dwarves explicitly did, so the tanning process will be queued up. I don't think there's ever going to be a case where we end up with rawhide out of nowhere, unless perhaps we can trade for it, but I don't think that's ever a trade good, so I'm not going to worry about that one. But do let me know in the comments if that is perhaps setting myself up for failure. We've made all of the wooden crutches we needed. You know what, let me just double check. Do we have tables set up to be made at all? The doors, no. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up some wooden table. Hello, Tally. What are you up to, sweetheart? Let's get a couple of these made. Tally is on a bit of a wander. Probably trying to stash food around my office, no doubt. There we go. And we'll get some wooden chairs as well. There we go. And we want 4 of these. And this will cover making our first little dining area. Now, we could make it a tavern. You can make them pretty small. However, I would caution against that initially. Or at least if you do make a tavern, make it for your citizens only. Taverns are great because if you've got any instruments, like early traded instruments, or make your own, then your dwarves will have even happier time eating their meals. But I wouldn't open this up to pilgrims or general public, because that will just make things a little bit more complicated for you, and suddenly you have more people that you need to vet to make sure they don't have a suspicious amount of skills for their apparent age and might in fact be a vampire. So on and so forth. There's a lot of things you need to be careful about in Dwarf Fortress, and inviting vampires into your colony is one of them. Right, let's go ahead and set up a new area down here. Funny thing about vampires, by the way, dwarves are, again, they are alcohol dependent as a species. Being a vampire doesn't change that. They just now have a thirst for blood, but they still need alcohol. However, being a vampire means they don't need to drink, eat, or sleep. This causes some very unhappy dwarves. Unless, actually, you have a tavern, in which case the dwarf will never try to satisfy their own desire to drink alcohol as a vampire, because they don't normally drink. But a tavern keeper will still serve alcohol to patrons, and that is the only way to get a dwarf to not be incredibly slow and incredibly unhappy about not having drunk, even though they don't drink now. They can't die from it. Dwarves remain alcohol dependent even as undead. True facts. But this little area over here will allow us to pull in our workshops from outside. Though it still doesn't really give us any dedicated storage, but that's not really the purpose of this area. Now that they've done everything, actually, we may as well move straight from blueprint straight into production there. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is zoom in rather than change levels. Now, the Farmer's Workshop's an interesting one. Almost everything here you want on repeat. I don't know if these are ever automated, though. Okay. I am back. I decided that I was going to go ahead and set up a bunch of work orders since we're going to need more or less everything here. The only two that we're not worrying about right now is making sheets, so that is parchment from plants, and also processing plants into vials, and I'll explain why in a moment. However, I set all of these up on camera, and partway through that, Tally came to say hi and was climbing up my leg, so I was chatting and playing with Tally, and then I came back to this, intending to cut that out. However, I forgot I was speaking Welsh. So, as is the case, once I start, I tend to continue. And it took me a couple of minutes to realize, oh, I'm speaking the wrong language. So, yeah. To recap everything I did, we've got pretty much automated jobs for milking animals and shearing animals. These are different from all of the others. All of these are more or less the way that I've set them up. In the past, we'll check for available items and then we'll work through it. So we've got spinning thread, that is taking hair and wool. Interesting note, you can actually shear trolls if you've managed to tame them, so you can end up with troll wool. Making cheese. No. We do not want unrotten cheese. No. We don't care about the amount of cheese that is available. What we care about is the amount of milk. I'm glad I double checked that. That was probably when Tally spooked me a little bit, but I just felt her climbing up my leg randomly. So unrotten milk items. Then we will try to make 10 cheese. Later on, we'll probably want to dial these numbers down, and in fact, we might want to make the cheese reliant on the milk animal job having completed, because we're not likely to have any milk in the fort until that's the case. Processing plants. Now, this one's a bit of an interesting one. There are several different ways to process plants. The chief takeaway, though, is that much like brewing, processing a plant... In fact, I think every other way of interacting with plants except cooking will still generate a seed. Cooking is the only thing that kills the seeds. So don't worry about your seed stock. If you're processing the plant, you're going to get the seeds back. But we want to check if there's any unrotten bag processable plants and also an empty bag, in which case we'll try and do that. For our purposes, this is primarily going to be stripping the leaves off quarry bush and making those leaves available. The leaves themselves are unedible, but you can cook them. And in fact, they make great filler for meals, and you can cook very large batches of meals as a consequence of that. Dwarf Fortress handles item stacks in a really weird way. I'm sure I'll talk about it at a later point, but just know that cooking with a larger stack of ingredients produces a larger stack of meals. They don't recombine these later on, so you're directly saving space in a barrel, because a barrel can hold a certain number of stacks rather than a certain size of stack. Processing plants itself is taking any fibrous plant, for our purposes, pigtails, but you've also got surface plants like rope reed, and turning them into fibers. Then you've got processed plants into barrels. This will be our sweet pods being made into dwarven syrup, which can then be cooked. And again, it'll check for an available barrel in there. Finally, we come down to the two outcasts, the two elephants in the room. Dwarf Fortress does not consider animals objects. Well done, Dwarf Fortress. I agree. However, this does kind of cause problems in that work orders specifically can only count items as part of the conditional statements. So how do you get around that? How do you check if there are milkable animals or shearable animals? The long and short of it is you don't, but you can set up monthly. You don't have to check daily. You can check monthly, seasonally, or yearly. I've gone with 5 here because I imagine we're going to start seeing animal pregnancies in the near future. But you're going to want to tailor this number to the kind of herd size that you're dealing with. Every month we will try to milk 5 animals, and we'll probably fail after a certain number of them. And the same for shearing animals. Later on, I will have the make cheese job kind of based off the completion of the milk animal job, and that will further improve the efficiency of the automation here. But the main thing to know is that every month we're going to just try to milk or shear a certain amount of animals, and we're going to expect to fail after a certain point. But that's the only way that I've considered or been able to find to automate this process. So if you're struggling with that should, fingers crossed, take care of it. Now, we've got a loom over here, and I would like to set up a collect webs. Well, collect webs will be automatic, but we're going to want to spin yarn into cloth, thread into silk, and thread into cloth. All of these are now going to be on the list for us. I'm going to say, basically this is all cloth. So this is like pigtail cloth, this is silk cloth, and then this is wool cloth. However, I'm going to try and make sure that we've always got an available amount of thread left over. So unused collected plant thread, there we are, we want to check for that. If the unused collected plant thread is over, greater than 10, then we'll try out, probably spin 5 of them. And we'll check for this daily. That way I always leave 5 units of fibre behind, because that's quite often the amount that I'm going to want in my hospital. So we'll reduce that to 5, and I will quickly set that up for all of the other types of loomable threads. And there we go. So that should take care of us always having some cloth and some thread available for us. Now, hopefully our dwarves are going to be able to get on with a little bit more work over here. Now, with that bauxite that we just made free, I would actually like to set up a new workshop outside. We will eventually be moving this inside, but I want to try and get on top of this as quickly as we possibly can. We're going to make a mechanics workshop because I need some mechanisms. The mechanisms are going to be the chief way of us keeping our fortress safe for now. There is obviously going to be the potential for us having a siege, and right now our tactic in order to survive them is simply going to be hiding. I know, not very dwarfy, but also is being dead. Well, actually, considering Moria, maybe not. But nevertheless, we're going to try and extend the lives of our dwarves for as long as we can. We don't want them getting raided and then slain by miasma or goblins. The miasma, though, is a bit of a problem. We've got a bunch of king snake meat and ibex meat. That is unfortunate. That means if we've got meats over here, they may be going bad at this point. Well, no, though, buzzard meat is okay. All right, well, hopefully we can get that out then, rather than it going bad. There we are. Rotten desert tortoise meat. It's quite the shame, honestly. Hopefully we can get that pulled out reasonably fast. I'm going to be honest, I've been putting off this moment for a while. I feel bad. They are why we got here. But, horse, the final job, your final duty, the final honor, is that you will live on in this fort forever, long past your natural lifespan, as a beautiful quiver, and also as some soap. The soap won't last nearly as long, but the quiver, this is going to be an heirloom quiver, hero horse quiver. Thank you very much for your work. Oh, what a way to thank the horse, though. But we do need the fat. We need the fat to be able to make the soap, which will keep our dwarves alive should there be an injury. It'll help prevent infection. And we also need the leather, because without the leather, we can't make a quiver, and without the quiver, we can't have a hunter. Let's have a quick look. Now, butchering an animal, instant. Making the leather takes a lot more time. Almost everything takes time, but the moment the animal reaches the butcher, it's gone. Bear that in mind. That is your window of opportunity to change your mind. The moment the animal reaches the butcher shop, it is instantly butchered into lots of bits. Like they even took the time to take out the eyeballs. That's the degree of butchery going on right there. But at this point now, we want a quiver, please, and indeed thank you. Let's get that one being made, and then with that, we would be able to set up a hunter, so the other horse doesn't need to perish. Well done, horse. You were the lucky one. Whether we keep you for long or not, I don't know. Eventually, you will simply die. If we can get you a mate, then we will continue breeding horses. But realistically, you can't have horse... well, we can pull wagons with horses, but we can't really have a wagon in Fortress mode. And I don't think the dwarves can ride horses. I don't even know if they can ride ponies. So sadly, your life is pretty much going to be for butchering as far as I'm aware. Now, it looks like everything is moving forward as necessary, so I'm going to let the dwarves have a bit more time. Oh, my lord. I missed that. We got migrants. Well. Let's have a look. Some migrants have arrived. They arrived over there. We only actually got 2. Oh, this is lucky. Migrant waves can be a bit of an issue, honestly, because you can end up with like 30 migrants, or at least you could in Classic. Whether it's quite as crazy as that now in the Steam version, I don't know. But As much as it's nice to have some new faces around the fort, it can also be a massive potch to deal with them. So I'm glad it was a relatively small migrant wave. All right, let's get some chairs in here, then this will be our dining room. Everyone say hello to Eelstar, our woodcutter, who has low willpower, values harmony, is fearful, has poor focus, values power, and is bashful. 61 years old, does have a spouse. I don't believe they're here, though. They're an adequate woodcutter, an adequate lie maker, an adequate gelder, of all things to be adequate with. You are, however, a competent spear dwarf. Now, that one's an interesting one. That possibly puts you as one of the more skilled combat dwarves in the fort. You have knowledge of the poetic form, the sheens of learning, and the musical form, the euphoric wonder. You're also a novice climber. You will continue as a woodcutter. I see no reason to change that up. You've already grabbed yourself an axe. Welcome to the fort. Hopefully you will enjoy it. Now, our peasant, Bicklow, the terms that it gives, by the way, is based on the highest skill that they have. Bicklow has one skill, and it's a bit of an interesting kind of edge case. This game, dabbling is technically 0 levels in a skill, but it's knowledge of a skill. Dwarf Fortress makes the rare distinction between not knowing something and simply not knowing how to do that something. Novice is the first level where you're actually skilled in it. It's level 1 of skill. Dabbling is level 0, but you have a vague knowledge of the skill's existence, I guess. It's a bit of a weird one, but you're technically not skilled in anything, so you have no highest skill, so you are therefore considered a peasant. You've got a novice speaker, but social skills usually don't count towards any profession. You're a competent musician and a percussionist. Very nice. Novice keyboardist, so you might actually... Oh, my lord. Okay, so you're the fortress bard. My goodness, you know a lot of stuff. You've got loads of different poetic forms you know of, loads of different musical forms, dance forms, choreography. These are actual... dances, poems, bits of literature that you know, whereas these are the forms. Like, for example, if you wanted to write a poem, you might choose from any of these poetic forms, and they all have procedurally generated, forms. It's one of the beautiful things about Dwarf Fortress. It simulates the world down to an absolutely crazy granular level. But these are all of the different poems and dances and essays that you just know of and could recite by request. So you may actually find yourself being a performer within the colony. But for the time being, I think we're actually going to give you the job of helping out with mining as well. So let's get you grabbing yourself a pick and then heading out, and hopefully we'll see the mining work over here done fairly soon. Now, where is said pick? I do not know. Hopefully we have actually got one in this weapon, but yeah, we've got a bronze pick in there. That's perfect. We've also now got the bronze crossbow, and with the quiver we could set someone up as a hunter. I might even set you up as a hunter, but no, generally speaking, if it's a civilian job, don't give them work that requires multiple different types of tools. That does not end particularly well. Usually it doesn't end at all. They just don't do it. Right, so we're unable to plant all of the plants that we wanted. Let's have a look. Some rock nuts there, plump helmet spawn over here, some pigtail seeds, some cave wheat seeds. We'll slowly work our way through everything as we can. Now, the next thing we're going to want to make sure of is that our clothier's workshop is actually making some things. Now, I want to make sure that we've got some bags so that we can process the quarry bush leaves, but do be aware that this is a game where items will slowly decay. That is, worn items. Dwarves, much like in RimWorld, don't particularly enjoy walking around in the nude unless they do, because some of them will have that kind of personality, but not many of them in my experience. So generally speaking, you do want to set up an industry to replace, if not produce for trade, certain clothing. But we're a little ways away from that, so I'm not going to worry too much about that one for now. I'm going to set up a work order, though, to make cloth bags. If we have less than 10 cloth bags, then try and make 10. Also, try and use, if there's any, at least one unused plant cloth. I'm not going to do it for silk bags, though I guess I could. I suppose it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world. But I also want some rope. Let's have a look. Where is... That's robe, not rope. Cloth, rope. Exactly the same thing. If the amount of... Well, it says chains, because chains and rope, they're exactly the same thing functionally for the game, but one is made of thread and one is made of metal. But if we've got less than 10, then I want you to try and make 10. There we go. You should always have some around if you can. At least one. There we go. Let me just make sure that I didn't make a mistake there. Yeah, at least one. All right, those are the only two that we really, really need to make sure is happening right now. Okay, we are done carving out this new room. Now, we're ultimately going to want to bring all of these facilities across, but the first one we really, really badly need to get going is a... where are you now? The stoneworker. There we go. Let's get this one pride of place over here. Plop. We're going to use... We could use petrified wood, but I guess in a cruel twist of irony, we're going to make the stoneworkers out of logs. There we go. Let's get that. I'm fairly certain. I just swore in Dwarvish. But we're going to get the stoneworkers set up, and then immediately we're going to start producing blocks out of the stone. This is really, really, really efficient use of your available rocks, your stones. The game uses the two terms interchangeably, but you want to make rocks wherever you can, and then build with make blocks wherever you can, and build with those blocks. You will get about 4, or it might even be 5 blocks from a single stone, but you still only need 1 block for a construction. So you're effectively multiplying your available building resources, or your mineral building resources, by 4 or 5. But they're also incredibly light compared to a whole, basically a boulder of rock. So this is something that pretty much you're going to want always happening. So as far as I'm concerned, blocks straight away. Make blocks. Well, I guess I will put in a bit of a limit, because we don't want to take all of the rocks away from the crafters. So the amount of rock blocks is below a certain amount, and the amount of non-economic hard rock is at least. Now, you don't want to make blocks out of non-economic hard rock, because unfortunately that is going to throw away your metal ores by making them into blocks. Once they're in block form, they cannot be used for smelting or any other use other than just a building material. So do try to make sure that you've at least got non-economic hard rocks. And then we're going to say if it is less than... let's go for something fairly large. Let's say less than 50, then try and make 10. And we'll do that every day. I'm not going to give them a massive job to make in a single day, because that'll basically pin a dwarf down for ages. We've made all of the brewed goods. That's fantastic. Okay, things are starting to come together. Now, there is another job that we're going to want to do. And that is, we're going to want to make a stairs. Now, the reason for this is we want a well. Now, it's going to be a fairly simple one. Okay, there we go. I have dug out an area that we're going to be using for our well. Down here, we're going to have a bit of a larger system, so it'll be a 2x3x3 area full of water, which will allow us, even if we're under siege for quite some time, our dwarves will be able to gather water from this for the foreseeable future. We will be adding a little bit of extra defense so that besiegers aren't going to be able to sneak their way into our fort by going through our well, and that will take the form of either a fortification or we'll sink some vertical bars into the ground. I'm not a huge fan of making completely impervious defenses. There are some ways that you can kind of play with the AI pathfinding to make otherwise vulnerable like doors and hatches basically impervious to damage. A building destroyer wouldn't consider it a viable target, but I prefer to play the game with the spirit of the rules rather than rules as written. That's the sort of role player I tend to be, and I like a little bit of drama. I don't want a completely immune fort that's going to last forever. I want the story and the drama that comes from adversity. But we will set that well up as soon as I've got a miner who can take care of the job. whilst all of that's going down, hopefully we've got some blocks now being over here. Yes, there we are. So rock salt blocks, I guess. We're going to make our drawbridges out of that. So that's the next thing we're going to work on, that being, talking about defenses. So we're going to have some bridges. Now, it's very important to decide on how they're going to rise or not. If you have a retracting bridge, it simply slides off the floor. It slides backward into some recess. Now, if you're building it on just solid ground, well, that doesn't change anything. Maybe a goblin will fall on its backside as its legs slip out from underneath it, but otherwise it's just going to get back up and carry on walking. To make a drawbridge to protect you, you want to rise the drawbridge. Now, there's two ways of doing that. These control all of the directions. You can just rise it into a wall. So, for example, you notice the direction the mechanism are on the left, and if I put them like that, they're on the right. And if I do this, they're towards the top of the tile. It's a little bit harder to see, and do this, they're towards the bottom. You can rise it into a wall, and anyone on the drawbridge, when it rises, will get squished. Now, obviously, if we just rise to the side, it's still going to let anyone walk through. It'll occupy a tile, but there will be a viable tile. So the only real way that we could protect ourselves is to have it rise up or rise down, so that it creates a completely solid obstacle for the potential attackers. My personal preference is not to rise towards the fort. The reason for that is anyone stood on the bridge will be catapulted when the bridge rises. It rises with significant gusto. So if there was a goblin stood on the bridge, it's now flung down this corridor. Now, granted, it might not actually survive the impact with the wall at the end of the corridor, but it would be on the inside. I would prefer to fling things out of the fort rather than into the fort. So we're going to define our bridge like so. There we go, and we're going to use rock salt blocks. We're going to use all of them for that. And then over here, exactly the same thing. We want a bridge like so, and we're going to make it all out of rock salt blocks. There we go. Now, this will require some mechanisms to be built, and it will also then require mechanisms to a lever to activate. But we should be able to take care of that. And in fact, on the topic of levers, let's go ahead and just dig out this little area here. I'm going to have a single lever control both bridges. If there is a need to seal up the fort, I want both entrances sealed up. Now, down here, you've done a fantastic job there of getting all of this sorted. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to dig down some channels. Let's set up the channels right here. I will deal with that channel in a moment. We're going to need some vertical bars over here first, and in fact, that's going to necessitate me digging through first. This is a little bit more complicated than I would have liked it to have been. Okay, well, there's another option, and that is to have this run down to the water down over here. And I will show you the trick I'm going to try and use to give us access to this area in a moment. But we're going to place down some vertical bars. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to carve fortification out of sand, especially to stop water. We're gonna sink some vertical bars. We're just gonna try and ignore everything else. Rotten horse cheese, such a shame. Withered plump helmets, sweet pods. That's a dire shame. We're wasting food. I disapprove of that greatly. Right. In your absence as well, I did set up a little job to make bins and as well as the buckets and the barrels. Now this should start allowing us to store things over here, like bars and blocks bins, bars and block bins. People will start storing things as they can to maximize the amount of floor space that we've got. With that, though, I think it's probably time for us to move the smelter over, honestly. So let's decommission you and decommission the metalsmith's forge, and let's rebuild them over here. So furnaces, we want the smelter, and this can go right there. We may as well use rock salt at this point, and we will also make the forge, or the metalsmith's forge rather, right there. Also, we need the anvil first. I've got to break this down first before we do that. Now, rock salt might not be able to handle it, so we'll have to wait for the bauxite to be made into a block first. Oh dear. We've got miasma. Who's left rotting stuff around? Please sort that out. We've got enough people that they should be able to handle all of this. And you notice they're taking the animals off to milk. We have got a nanny goat, by the way. This was actually brought here as a tame pet of one of the migrants. And they will sometimes bring along their pets, which I think is actually quite lovely. For the time being, I'm also going to set up a quick work order for hatch. I would like a rock hatch cover. Just make one of these. There we go. We'll pop that over this. It just looks weird to have an open stairway that's basically going to go down into a well, because realistically that tile below that is going to be full of water. We also want to now build a lever. So let's pop a little lever right there. It's going to require some mechanisms. We'll take some rock salt mechanisms, and then we're going to hook these bridges up to that lever, so at any point we can seal this off. Now, right now, that means all of our animals will be left outside to be slain by the siege. So obviously we're going to want to try and do something to prevent that. We've struck bloodstone. What? It's not down there. Maybe down here? Yeah, bloodstone clusters. Okay, well that's quite swank. We've also our peasant has become a miner, I do believe. It started raining. We've completed doors, rock mechanisms, animals. Alright, milk animals have been completed. Making cheese has been completed. Make wooden barrels and wooden buckets. It's fantastic. So many jobs are being done. So many jobs have been cancelled. Okay, so I'm going to... The way I'm playing, and the way I like to play, is to basically try to do more work and don't worry about the cancellations. It does mean that I am at sincere and very serious risk of missing an important cancellation. I apologize in advance for when that inevitably happens, but I prefer to have a degree of automation. I think it's a price I'm willing to pay, basically. But it is something that I do so knowingly. So don't worry too much. I do know that this is going to be a problem at some point. I'm just going to accept it. Again, it's going to lead into drama. Hopefully once this save is done, we can rebuild our Metalsmith's Forge. There we go, and we will pop it right there. Iron anvils, and that's a shame. Well, I guess we'll use some dolomite. Sure, we'll have multi-coloured work spaces there. And then ultimately we're going to move the mechanics workshop over there as well, so we can break that one down now. There we are. Now, it's going to take them a while to get all of this stuff in. At this point, we're going to get rid of these stockpiles, though. Don't need them outside anymore. There we go. I would much prefer all of this brought inside, please and thank you. Next up would be the soap maker's workshop. So let's go ahead and rebuild that one. And very soon, we're going to be at the point where we've got everything that we need to be inside. It's going to be rather lovely. We'll use rock salt for that one as well. Now, this carrying, I guess you're carrying a rock right now over here. That is going to be so inefficient, it hurts my soul. Let's go ahead and make this job a little bit easier for you by at least doing this. Oh, I keep forgetting that if I right-click there, it gets that away. There we go. This is going to be set up for stones. I'm going to go into further information. I guess we could allow metal ores. I suppose it doesn't really bother too much, but ultimately I kind of want this to be more for non-economic. So turn off all economic stones and all metal ores, and we can bring everything else across, and then I can have that for metal over there. I would like, let's say, 2 wheelbarrows at a time. Now, one thing to be aware of: once a wheelbarrow is assigned to a place, I don't think this counts if you don't have a wheelbarrow to assign. So, like you've said, assign 1 wheelbarrow, and then you didn't have any. Then this wouldn't be the case. But once a wheelbarrow is assigned, it acts as a limit. People won't haul there unless they are using the wheelbarrow. So, understand, if you've got an enormous, dozens and dozens of tiles wide and tall and deep well, not deep, but stockpile, and 1 wheelbarrow, only 1 person will ever haul to that place. They'll do it quickly, but that will be a bit of a potch. So do be aware that wheelbarrows effectively lock down that area as only being able to be serviced by that many people at once. And they will take up a tile, so you're also losing tiles for the amount of wheelbarrows you put there. We want this one to be another stone area, but this time not other stones and not clay. Only economic and metal ores can be stored here, and much the same, I would like this one to have 2 wheelbarrows, not just one. There we go. That should help out a fair bit. At this point, we're just waiting for people to bring things into the fort, really, more than anything else. I am very tempted to have the wood stored outside, though. I think that might be a good idea. So let's go ahead and quickly throw down a stockpile about there. We'll accept this for now. Well, actually, I guess I'm going to be moving the carpenter space over there, aren't I? Okay. I'm going to repaint these. How about I draw this back? We're only going to allow a little bit there. I just didn't think far enough ahead, is the honest situation here. We'll pull that one across, and then we're going to shimmy it back. There we go, accept. And then finally, I'm going to make a new stockpile, and this one can be here, and this one can be for wood in particular. There we go. That one doesn't need a wheelbarrow, realistically. And at this point, I want this stockpile to not allow wood to be stored. Don't bring it in unless I've got somewhere for it to go. Don't accept stones. And don't accept any wood either. So, no wood there. And that should free up a lot more room for us. Now, we've got our lever ready. At this point, you want to add the job to link a lever. Click a building. We'll link that one, and I also want to link the lever down here as well. So whenever we pull this lever, we will completely seal the fort. Although it is a grim reminder of the winter hardships to come, the supply caravan from the Stake of Tufts is a welcome sight. Their eyes are alight with the anticipation of inspecting the splendid products of your industrious crafts, dwarves. Shifty eyes. A cook is a crafts dwarf, surely. Yeah. Our artisanal prepared meals. Take careful stock of your own stores. What these merchants offer might very well be the difference between a prosperous future and a slow and meaningless death. All right, interesting. So, we've got the outpost liaison. Okay, fair enough. We've also got 2 baby lambs. Oh, well, 2 lambs. Okay, so 2 baby sheep. That's fantastic news. Bunch of things done, bunch of things not done. We've spun some thread. We've made a rock hatch cover that we will then be immediately placing over this little spot here. So let's go ahead and throw that one down. There we go. Once that is built, we will, to some degree, be able to close off that little area there. Now, for us to have a well, though, we're going to need to dig another channel right about there. And further to that, we're also going to want to place down our vertical bars. We want constructions and we want vertical bars. We'll be making this out of bronze. It's the only bar that we've got. And we may as well just place it right there. Bronze bars, please and indeed thank you. There we go. That will seal off any water moving through this area. Now, up here, we need to line this up because we are going to be digging down about there. Now, I'm not going to do it just yet because there is still a few more steps to what we're working on. Once those bars are in place, we're going to dig out this little area and then channel out the remainder down here. Oh, we've also got some puppies. Oh, this is fantastic. Truly, a wondrous day. We can try and throw down a couple of crafts. I was hoping that I would have gotten to this stage before the caravan, but well, you don't always hit it. But thankfully, they will be here for a little while, so we should be okay. Right, so what we're going to want to do is I'm going to want to decorate anything we make. But I'm also, all of these, by the way, the Asmel, that's an instrument that our civilization has a knowledge of and we can make, which is actually pretty awesome. But there are a couple of things that we want. So make rock. I'm not sure what happened there. So let's go back in here again. We want rock. There we go. Now, we've got a handful of different kinds of crafts, or you can just say make rock crafts. This isn't a bad choice, if I'm perfectly honest. You'll just plow through and make as many rock crafts as you can. And it's certainly not going to be a bad option for us. But it is worth trying to take a little bit finer control, especially once you get to a point where you've got nobles who have specific things that they like. In that case, you want to make some of those things because they'll probably be mandated to be made and you don't want to fail the mandate. But also, you kind of want to, whilst you might produce a very specific amount of, say, earrings because your mayor has requested earrings, you want to focus your industry on everything but earrings after that, because they are almost certainly going to say, yeah, I'm prohibiting the export of earrings. I want all of the earrings. All of the earrings are mine. They're not your earrings, they're my earrings, and I don't want you to sell those earrings. So you really want to kind of shift the gears so your industry is now producing bracelets or amulets instead. Rock crafts is random. You don't have any real control over it. Right now, it's not going to hurt us, so I'll throw this one down. Non-economic rock, at least. Let's have at least one. I don't actually have enough. That's a bit of a shame. But we'll start working on the crafts. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is add another task to decorate. You've got bone, horn, ivory and teeth, pearls, and shells. Now, we're most likely to get teeth, horns, bone, and shells from the creatures that we have here. So we want bone, shell. Now, bone and shell are a little bit more unique in that you can actually make armor out of them. You can make shell gauntlets, and you can make bone bolts, so on and so forth, and those are actually a nice, cheap, non-metal way of getting a little bit more protection for people. But I wouldn't race towards it, if I'm perfectly honest. Now, give me just a moment to set up all of these decorate jobs correctly. And there we go. All of the decorate jobs basically follow the same template. Look for an improvable item. Now, this can be, well, generally you want it to be your craft. Now, with our current setup, it's going to be random stuff. They'll decorate the barrels. They'll decorate the bins. They will encrust ropes with jewels. Not exactly what you want. You really want those jewels on the little figurines that you're going to sell for an exorbitant amount of money to the trader. But right now, you can have a bit of control over it if you use stockpiles in a good way, but for this temporary base, it's just whatever they decide to use. So they'll need an improvable item. Items can be improved up to 8 times. So they might just put all of their time into a single item and really make it amazing. And we also want an unrotten whatever. So at that point, we'll be able to make some nice items. Now, they will crack on as soon as they've got the stone, which currently they don't, which is a bit of a problem. We've put in the bars, and the dwarf hasn't got themselves trapped. Ah, happiest of days. That is not always a guarantee. Right, we've got some diplomacy that we need to take care of. Let's go and have a look. The expedition leader, Besmar Plummersmack, meets with the outpost liaison. I am your liaison from the mountain homes. Let us discuss your situation. There is much to share. Now, information has been added to the civilizations and world info. That is going to be very interesting. We'll go and check that in a second. Now, we can make requests, and I urge you to always request something. And then try to buy at least one item of that thing. It's more than just, I want this thing. Because if you request something, if they're bringing it specifically because you asked for it, they're going to charge more for it. You're literally telling them what you will desperately pay more for. It's very, very dwarfish, I guess. But it is more than just an exchange of goods. It's also a sign that you're trading and that you're going to be a good trading partner. Don't just try to have an even trade. Always try to be generous with your trading because it'll encourage them to bring more variety next time. And when you request something, make sure you try and at least buy 1 or 2 things of that request. Don't just request something frivolously and then don't get anything. But for us, out of everything they have, let's see, what would we like? I guess we could go for some pets. Well, I mean, sure. Let's go ahead and pick up a horse to potentially be a mate. There we go. Perfect. I greatly agree. That's the only thing I'm going to request, though. It goes, okay, well then, we have finalized the import agreements. Feel free to go over the documents. The horses will be priced at 201%. Now, let us discuss what we are willing to offer you for your craftsdwarfship. A need for thread and seeds is expected, and if you're able to provide some, the caravan will offer 199% and 206% respectively. This export agreement only applies to trades next year, though, not with any merchants currently present, or on their way, by the way. So we're going to want to try and stockpile loads of thread, not turn that all into cloth. So I'm going to have to bear that in mind. And also seeds. We'll probably be drowning in seeds by the time that the caravan arrives next autumn. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. A sheep cheese roast? That would have been worth so much money. Okay, so it's clear that we need to move some stuff down into the trader. So let's go and have a look for meat. No. We want prepared meals. So probably just going to be in barrels. You can also search by typing something like prepared meals. So we can see there's 2,000 somewhat prepared meal barrel there. Donkey's milk barrel, that can stay. That's all we're going to need for now. There is some prepared horses intestines. No, we don't need that for now. Just bring those 2 barrels across and we should be good. They'll move those down and we'll see a little bit of a change in here to reference that. What you're seeing here, though, is stuff that the traders have. Stuff on the right is ours, stuff on the left is theirs. Now that we've brought those along, let's request a trader at the depot. Now, your options are no trader requested. Anyone can come along and do the trading. This is if your broker is like in hospital or something. It's better to have someone do the trading than no trading at all. But realistically, we want our broker to do it because they will get the most out of the training involved in that. There we are. Our broker is here. So let's go ahead and trade. All right. Now, contains 6 items. I would kind of like to see what's in the items. Oh, really? Damn it. They took the meal out of there. That's fine. We'll trade away this barrel and all of its meals. You can't... you used to be able to just dial in and see exactly what was inside and trade that specifically, but unfortunately that's no longer something that we can do. Alright, having looked through everything they have available, we're going to take some rope, some leather goods, simply so that I don't have to worry as much about getting leather. I would have loved to have taken a bin full of leather, but sadly they don't have any available. I'm taking a load of meat, a load of plump helmets, and plenty of vegetables and fruit. And although we don't strictly need them, I urge you once again to trade. It is important that money is changing hands. It doesn't necessarily matter if you're making the best profit. In fact, more often than not, I encourage you to let the trader have a very healthy profit. The text down here being green is a good sign. If I did that, it's now yellow. It's quite a bad sign for them. I wonder if it would go particularly worse. Yeah, now is that they're making a loss. They're not going to want to do that at all. But if they're in the green, then the trader themselves will be happy with having made that trade, and will be more likely to bring more stuff next time because you're a valuable trading partner. You want to be a valuable trading partner. That being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I've only actually got one thing that's worth any money. That's a shame. If I had a couple of different items, I would have traded for less, but then given a gift to the ruler at the mountain homes. But as it stands, we'll just make this trade. There you go. Ura seems pleased with the trading. This comes from our broker's skill in reading social situations and also being able to see like what cutoff point will make them happy and where they're less likely to be happy. So the color of the text, green, yellow, orange. That also comes from your broker's skills from what I understand. So that was a decent trade for them. We sold all of our prepared food. So with that, we no longer need our broker at the depot, so they can go off and tend to other business. At this point, we've done our due dwarfy diligence, and we have actually conducted trade. That was the important part. We always want to have some degree of trade. If we manage to get a couple more rock crafts made, and in fact it looks like, well, actually you're decorating, so I'm not sure. Oh, you're decorating the bins and the quiver. I mean, hero horse quiver. Let's have a look at the hero horse quiver. This is a superior quality horse leather quiver. It is encircled with bands of horse hoof. This object manaces with spikes of horsepower. Really? Did you have to? I mean, really, though. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to keep the horse together in one place. Whoever becomes our hunter is going to be carrying around more or less an entire horse with them. Right, we have almost done with the cistern over here. So at this point, as soon as that gets dug up, we will go ahead and finish off the well. We do need the well to be built, though, so let's go ahead and take care of that, because they won't be able to get the water otherwise. So we'll place a well right about there. We'll make it out of bauxite blocks, and we'll use a chestnut bucket, and we'll use a giant cave spider silk. No, we won't. That's incredibly... Oh, actually, this one's a decorated llama wool rope. Sure, we'll have a really bling rope on this well. Now, the reason why I've chosen to place this in the hospital rather than outside is, again, dwarves don't want to drink water. They will if it's what they need to do to survive, but they will consider that a pretty grim situation to be forced to lower themselves to the point of drinking water to live. However, your doctor will use quite a lot of water in taking care of wounded dwarves, so having it in the hospital just reduces the need for our doctor to walk out, or our orderlies, etc. Wow, okay, loads of miasma. I would love it if you'd clean that up. I really would. Okay, we have got some migrants have shown up. Wow, okay, right at the end there. We've got merchants are going to be leaving soon. They've already embarked on their journey. We've got 4 more migrants. We've moved in the carpenter's workshop and indeed the soap maker's workshop, and they have now been set up with their work orders as necessary. They'll be keeping stocks. And we've even got our well in place and everything dug out down here. So the last thing we're going to do in this episode, other than checking out the migrants, will be to drop down 2 channels right here. And that is going to give us access to water inside the fort. But whilst all of that is being done, in fact, it's being done straight away. So let's watch this happen. There we go. Now, if we were to turn on the water levels, we can see the water slowly moving through, and you can also see a dusting of mud, or in some places the mud will actually accumulate significantly more because the water is bringing in sediment. But what we want is for this water to continue to flow all the way down. It can flow through the iron bars without any impediment, and then it's going to start flowing down here into this into the cistern over here, and we'll gradually fill this all the way up. It'll take a little bit for that to happen, but this well is now operational because the well can reach all the way down to this tile. It can go down as far as it wants to, as long as there is no solid obstacle to the bucket traveling down. So you can actually end up having a well that can reach dozens and dozens of elevations down to get access to water. So there we go, that is all set up. So all that remains now is to check in on the new migrants. Who have we got? Okay, everyone please say hello to Aquatami, Darth Raptor, Encrypt, and Fooey. Fooey is blinking because they have a legendary skill. It is not in being a doctor, though. Competent Swordsdwarf, Competent Marksdwarf, though. What are you legendary? A legendary tracker. That is extremely interesting. You've got all kinds of knowledge. Medicine, geography, natural history, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy. Well, aren't you an interesting one? In fact, you've got some very good skills. I'm just going to... You're 98 years old. Okay, so that's kind of doable. Value, but that's a lot of focus on doctoring. Yeah, I think that's possible. The fact that you're also competent swordsdwarf and competent marksdwarf, I mean, you're not amazing at them, so that's possibly okay, but this is an interesting one. You are old, though, so it's possible that you might actually have picked those skills up legitimately, but we need to keep an eye on you, Fooey. Values peace, resists sickness, slow to love, zany, good analytical abilities, and disdains loyalty. Have you drunk recently? We're going to have to watch through here and see if you end up drinking. Because if you ever end up with a memory of a fine meal or a wonderful drink or of dining in a great dining room, then that clears you. That's evidence that you are not a bloodsucker. But what kind of jobs are we going to give? You are amazing. Both of the new doctors, in fact, Encrypt is absolutely fantastic. A great diagnostician, a professional surgeon, an adept suturer, skilled wound dresser, adequate herbalist, and novice bone doctor. That's the only one that lets you down. The only one. Competent spear dwarf. Loads of philosophy there as well. Okay, well, you're 75 years old. It's getting a little bit less believable at this point. Unmet need to pray. That's good. Satisfied at work, remembering work. At work, near pleasure near a fine bridge. Pleasure near a fine door. Satisfied remembering work. Okay, well, we'll see what happens here. But I think both of these doctors are going to need to be set up. And if I'm perfectly honest, I'm really terribly sorry, Isham. I know you loved being a chief medical dwarf. However, there is someone significantly better than you. The primary skill for the chief medical dwarf is diagnostician. And, I mean, you know, we can't really argue with that. However, let's go into the zone for the hospital. We've got some fixing up to do. As far as diagnostician goes, I'm just going to say, well, see, Encrypt is also a better surgeon, so I guess I could just have Encrypt working that. We could have 3 doctors, frankly. Sure. Okay, Fui, you'll also be a doctor. So all 3 of you will help out. But Fui, you can definitely join Isham in the same labours. I think that would actually work out quite well for you. So let's get you to be a cook. There we go. And since you're also a cook, I'm going to make you a planter as well. But Encrypt, you're just going to be a doctor. I don't think I want you doing anything else. Darth Raptor, I think I'm going to leave you without any focus, and you can just pick up whatever particular jobs feel right for you. And other than that, I think we're more or less good. Oh, yeah, actually, Aquatami, you can remain as a miner. But I think that couldn't possibly have a better wrapping up point for the episode today. We've managed to get a decent amount of work done. At this point, there is only a single building left to add to this area. That at that point, I think it would be a good, you know, kind of starter base for our dwarves to use as a springboard to whatever comes in the future. We'll get to that building in the next episode, though. We do have a self-sufficient supply of food. We have a trading outpost. We have the ability to repair our clothes. We're not doing that just yet, or rather to make new ones. We're not doing it, but we do have the ability to. We have all of the requirements to keep our hospital well stocked. We've got a dining room. We've got a dormitory with enough beds for this many dwarves easily. We have got metalworking indoors, and we've even got room for a little bit more expansion on workshops. I don't know if we're going to need it for the time being before we get to the important business of setting up the proper fort. So in the next episode, expect to see the finalizing of this support base, I guess you could call it, and the beginning of the setup of the fort proper. We'll also look at setting up a permanent pasture for our animals as well. But all of that is going to be for the next episode. Oh, there we go. We managed to get the well set up just in time. Winter has just arrived, yet we do have more or less an entirely full system for the well. So we will be fine, even if some shenanigans were to happen now before mid-spring when the river is going to thaw. But that is going to be it from me and all of the dwarves of Castlecote. I really do hope you've enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next. But until then, and as always, do take care, everyone.